Hello, and welcome to Sunny Days Podcast, the podcast for folks to start living their grooviest, most magical lives. I'm your host, Alex the Good Witch, a professional psychic, healer, speaker, and coach. I use my degree in biochemistry, experience as a mental health provider, and spiritual gifts to align your subconscious programming with your conscious desires, guiding you into your dream reality. Here, you will receive practical guidance, insight, and stories that you can apply to create your happiest, most fulfilling life today. If you're ready to feel lit up, capable, and inspired, I invite you to join me on this sunny day. Hello, and welcome to the Sunny Days Podcast. My name is Alex the Good Witch. I am your host. I am a psychic healer and coach. I also specialize in inner child work and shadow work. And today we're going to talk about boundaries. When we talk about boundaries today, it's not going to be like your typical boundaries kind of class or course. I feel like we've all seen boundary examples and what having boundaries means, the importance of it. But I really want to get into something that I feel like really hinders us from implementing boundaries and holding true to them. And that's thinking that we are hurting the other person by doing so, or that we are only hurting ourselves by not doing so. I think that that's a big thing that this little voice in my head would be telling me back when I struggled a lot with boundaries, is that it's my choice to hurt myself. Like by me not having the boundaries, yeah, I get screwed over by it. But I'm kind of just choosing to do that in the moment because I'm uncomfortable. And I think that even when we subconsciously fall back into not putting up the boundaries or staying true to them, that this information that I'll be sharing with you today on the podcast can really help kind of push forward and take those steps to practice, to implement, to work on boundary setting, because I feel like we don't actually have the full picture of what is going on when we don't respect our own boundaries. So that's what we'll be getting into today. I am very excited. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about with boundaries is what I've noticed as patterns of people who struggle with boundaries. Specifically, I want to use this this example or this like meta view of examples to really help us see that not adhering to boundaries doesn't necessarily just fuck us over and do better for the other person. So what I mean by that is I'm someone who struggled with boundaries a lot. And, I still work on things like confrontation and assertiveness and things of that nature. But something that I always thought when I was having a hard time with boundaries and I wouldn't make them, I wouldn't follow through with them, and it was just makes me really uncomfy. I would just like have this kind of small or quiet thought that was like the assumption that, yeah, that's not great for me, but that's the end of it. Like I'm kind of choosing to maybe not do the best thing for me. I'm kind of screwing myself over with this. And I didn't really see how that could affect other people. I could see how it could affect other people in that they now don't know like what my needs are. So there's a lot more room for me like being burnt out and then therefore me resenting them. I could piece together certain things of how it would affect people and maybe not the best way, but I was mind blown when I noticed this pattern that I keep mentioning that I'm going to get into right now, this pattern that I kept seeing with people who all have a hard time with boundaries and how that was playing out in a way that was not beneficial to others, not just themselves. So my example is with clients. So every once in a while, I will have a client who just is really kind of pushing and going over um what's laid out as like my time, my energy, what I'm providing, really trying to like go past that. And it's never really in like an intentional way. The vast majority of the time, 99% of the time, they have no idea they're doing it whatsoever. You could just totally tell by interacting with them. They have no idea that they're pushing the boundaries, that they're pushing the limits, that they're kind of asking beyond what's laid out. And just kind of blowing past my boundaries, or to them, someone else's boundaries. No idea. This is not intentional. This is not like a bad or like mean thing that anyone's doing. But every once in a while I'll get a client who does that, and it just kind of is like a sticky situation to navigate, because you're trying to be like, okay, well, we're out of time, and they just keep pressing and pushing, and it's this whole thing that they don't realize they're doing again. But every time that that has happened, it has always been coming from someone who struggles with their own personal boundaries. And I know this because that'll often come up like in their reading, right? It's coming up as things like to work on or to work with. And it's very interesting to me because these are people who are constantly getting taken advantage of, and constantly being asked too much of, right? And doing too much for people, being asked too much by other people. And that's what's happening in this moment, in this dynamic, towards me. And that's what really like got my attention, is realizing that when you don't have boundaries, it's not just like a personal choice or preference or coping skill going on. When you don't have boundaries, or you don't see boundaries for yourself, I encourage you to maybe try to see it as, I don't see boundaries, period. Not just like my own personal boundaries, but I have trouble with boundaries, period. And I think a lot of times when we say like, oh, I have trouble with boundaries, I should work on that, we're really just seeing it in the scope of ourselves. And like I said, maybe a limited view, like, okay, I could see how this can affect other people, but I think it really goes vastly unnoticed. One moment. Alexa, stop my timer. Okay, so I think it goes vastly unnoticed that we don't see other people's boundaries either, because we've like literally don't see them, right? So of course it's going unnoticed. And again, I don't mean this in any way that is like shameful, or that's mean, and that's bad, that's rude. No, not at all. Like, we don't know that we're doing it. And I strongly believe that like that was me too, even though I had no idea at the time. But like I can really I totally believe that when I had a harder time with boundaries, that I was doing the same thing to people, where like I didn't see theirs as well. And part of that is because that's what you're used to. Like that's all you know, right? You're living in this world where like boundaries aren't a thing for you. And boundaries are either not thought of, or scary, or uncomfortable, or vulnerable, whatever it is, right? It's just kind of like not there. So it makes sense to interact that way with others as well, because like that's how you interact. That's how you allow people to interact with you. And it's just kind of like that's how things are. That's how dynamics are. If you've taken my free bird program, like that I talk about that like dynamics within are the dynamics without, and like your subconscious is just like so used to the dynamics from way, way, way back when you were much younger and your subconscious programming was formed, and it's taken on dynamics that you aren't even aware of, that those dynamics play out not only back then, but inside of you and also outside of you in ways that are just like so beyond our awareness, but that we're so used to. It's like saying the sky is blue. So with that, with like not seeing the boundaries with other people, um, another way to think about it that just makes so much sense and I think can really help you with your boundary work is seeing it as if you don't have boundaries for yourself, people are most likely taking advantage of you, or asking too much of you, or maybe they're not even directly doing it, but you are doing it to yourself. Like you're giving way too much of yourself. You're asking too much of yourself for other people. You're putting all that on you. You're like not respecting your own boundaries, or assuming that other people need you to do that, right? Whatever it is, it's like you're like running on empty, whether that's you doing it to yourself or, people taking advantage of you, asking too much of you, but, like there's too much that is being like taken from you in whatever way, shape, or form. And when that happens and you don't have boundaries, you're not giving that to yourself. It's all getting given away or taken away. But at the end of the day, you need those things that are being given and taken away. Like you need that like energy or that nurturing or that care or that comfort. Like those are needs that aren't being met and that are being ignored. So you're going to have to get them somehow. And that's why every once in a while you'll come across someone where you can't help but like try to get that from them. Like you need it so bad. And again, you probably don't realize you're doing it. When I've had this happen from clients, they have no freaking idea they're doing it. I do not hold anything against them whatsoever. Like I'm here to help them. I continue being like their person, right? This isn't like I won't see people after this or anything like that. I'm just saying I noticed it and I think it's going to be really helpful to see this example. I've done that before, but it's like you need to get it from someone. So I believe that, I mean, some people might be trying to get it from like everybody, right? But I honestly believe, just from what I've seen and like what I've connected to, that you might not be trying to get it from everybody, but there's gonna be like certain people that for whatever reason, like maybe they're such a caretaker or they're such like an open ear or they're so grounded or, whatever it is that makes them seem like you can get those things from them subconsciously. These aren't like conscious thoughts like I can get what I need from them, but I'll take it from them. It's not conscious at all, but subconsciously it's like, oh my god, this is my chance to like to get because everything has been like take give. This is my turn to get. Like I need to, and like it comes latches on, and like that's the energy that I feel when every once in a while I get those situations. That's totally the energy that I feel. It's like take everything that you can get because you've given it all or you've had everything like taken. Um so really keep that in mind with boundary work. Um that metaphor or whatever you want to call it of like the giving and having taken from and you're going to need it from somewhere. And the reason I say this is not so that you can be like, oh my god, like I'm doing the same thing people are doing to me. I'm taking advantage of people too. And oh my gosh, it's so bad and I feel so bad. No, I'm saying this so that part of your brain that says like, "Hey, it's okay for you to not have boundaries with yourself because you're only hurting yourself." Like, one, that shouldn't be like an exception, like, "Oh, like you're only hurting yourself, that's not a big deal." But two, it's like, no, this is like an overall state of mind or an overall dynamic, an overall state of being that you're most likely in as far as boundaries go, period. Okay, so I took a minute and I really want to add in some examples to how this might be playing out because it's so, like I said, it goes so unaware and it's really hard for us to see because there is so much like shame around it because we don't like when people do that to us. So it's really hard to fathom that we, in whatever capacity, even though it might not be the same kind of capacity, the same kind of taking or over asking or whatever it is, it's really hard for us to see us doing that to other people because that's something that is very hurtful when people do it to us and has caused a lot of harm and makes things very challenging for us. So it feels so weird and then also shameful and very guilt ridden to think of ourselves as doing it to others. I think that's another reason that it even stays hidden too, is because of the potential feeling bad about it. So some examples to help you maybe broaden your perspective. And again, seeing this without shame, seeing this as just something that is being passed around subconsciously, and that you have the ability to work on once you see it, but it starts with seeing it. So this may be like the example that I gave with clients, like people's time and energy. And again, it may not be like every single person, you're just doing this all the time. But looking back, like I remember um like reaching out to the therapist that I had at the time, and just like expecting, you know, um, expecting like responses or just maybe like asking for things that, you would really need in a session, but asking them like over text. So that's like a simple way of realizing that your lack of boundaries, kind of your lack of personal boundaries, you're also kind of spilling that out and doing the same sort of thing to other people because it's just a lack of boundaries, period. So it might be people's time. So for example, maybe someone, let's say, is like watching your kid, and you are doing a bunch of things. So you're running around doing a bunch of things for all these people because you don't have the boundaries. Maybe the people are taking advantage of you, or you're over giving to the people that you're helping out, and you're running around doing all these things for others. And while doing that, you're letting the person who's watching your kid, stay longer than expected. That's a really simple example of how your lack of personal boundaries is really just a lack of boundaries, period, because it's unable to see the other person's as well. And of course, there's nuances to every example. And I know that that might seem very simple, like, oh, like it's okay for them to just stay a few minutes, like I'm doing all of these things. But I think it's important to realize that we do spin it that way. We spin it as like, well, I'm doing and giving so much, it's not a big deal to have someone else overgive a little bit or extend their boundaries a little bit. I already do it all the time for all these people, and like I'm needing that of them in order to support me not having the boundaries, right? So that's a good example. Let's see. Oh, I had another one. I want to give like different kinds of examples. So not just like people's time. Um, So, yeah, another one being kind of like what I was mentioning of I do so much, I overgive so much, and then kind of like expecting to be able to get that from other people at times because you need it. Like I said, there's this need there. So it's like, where else are you going to get it if you're not putting up the boundaries and giving it to yourself? So it's so easy to feel like there's a little bit of like obligation in very specific scenarios from like another person where they should do that for you. They should do X, Y, and Z for you because you're always overgiving and you're always doing this for like all these people, and like you just need them. You just need them this one time or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, like that's still from like that context and that point of view of being boundaryless, because objectively they have whatever their boundaries and whatever their capacity is. And just because you overextend yourself doesn't mean that they then need to overextend themselves in whatever way in order to compensate for that. So again, that could be time, that could be energy, that could be like, the examples I was giving with clients, because they're needing this like emotional support. They don't set the boundaries to be able to like give that to themselves and to get it from others. That once I give them some emotional support, I feel like there's this need to really compensate all that they have been giving away, or that has been being taken away from them. So really look at it as kind of that compensation, because to you, it's probably going to seem like not a big deal, a very simple thing. And objectively, it might be a very simple thing. It might be like, it's just 5 minutes or whatever it is, right? It's just a simple errand, whatever, right? It's just a simple, stay and listen because I need this, whatever it is. But think of like it from a different point of view. You're coming from how much you give and how much is taken from you and how much you need. So it's like, please, why wouldn't you do this for me and overextend yourself for me with all I give and all that's taken from me? But keep in mind that that's from that perspective, where someone who has boundaries, they're giving all those things to themselves. And at the end of the day, even though it's not your fault and it's very subconscious, um, you are not putting up the boundaries the way that you're needing to in order to have the time and energy that you need to get your needs fulfilled. And then now, because of that, it's this domino effect where every once in a while you're like really needing someone else to do that for you, to compensate for that, to give that to you. Um, and when you see it that way, you see how that's not necessarily fair, right? Again, no shame or anything in it. It's just to like objectively see what's going on, because I think a lot of the examples do seem like little things, little details, like, oh, I stayed late, or I let this person stay late, or whatever little thing that it is. To someone without boundaries, it may seem so like, well, of course it should happen this way, like it needs to, and it's expected to, like, um why wouldn't you do this for me, or why can't I just have this, um whereas objectively, it that small ask, and small ask, especially relatively speaking to all that's asked of you, because it's so much that is asked of you. So this thing seems like a small ask, but that small ask might be pushing over someone's boundaries or ignoring someone's boundaries, or yeah, like trying to push them out, or ignoring them altogether, whatever that is. So that small ask might be in a way that's still not respecting the other person's boundaries. And it all stems from your boundaries aren't respected. So it's going to end up um, going in that direction as well. It needs to. Needs got to be met. So I hope that um, cleared some things up as far as how you can maybe see little things. And with these little things, the solution is not to start at these actions. So the solution is not, oh, I shouldn't ask this of this person. I shouldn't ask for help. I shouldn't ask anything that may be beyond somebody's boundaries. That's not the solution. The solution is to see that, like, oh, I can kind of see how this is going on, right? So you get a more fuller picture, and the actual practice is going back to your own personal boundaries. So don't worry about like realizing, oh, I shouldn't ask of this person. I shouldn't ask of them, or I shouldn't ask for help. That's not the point I'm driving home here. I'm just saying, look at those things to help you get a more full picture of what's going on and what the dynamic is and how it's actually affecting you and your life. And your life includes dynamics with people. And then use that to help you really get into the nitty gritty of like your personal boundaries. That's the work to be done. Because when you work with your own personal boundaries and you help yourself get to that point where you feel like you're worth it, you deserve it. It's okay to be uncomfortable in doing it, the practice of it, just all of that. that's going to lead you to respect boundaries, period. Right? Just like there's a lack of boundaries, period. When you respect your own boundaries, you naturally respect boundaries, period. And it'll just be a domino effect, and it'll clear up the ways that you may be trying to like overcompensate by every once in a while, or with certain people or certain situations, um, not seeing the boundaries of others. That will like clear itself up naturally when you're a place where you're respecting boundaries, respecting your personal boundaries, which ends up meaning respecting boundaries, period. So don't worry about, the things that you ask of people, things like that. It's good to ask for help, right? Like I'm not trying to stop anyone from doing that. It's just to take a look at things and then focus on your personal boundaries. And in doing so, you'll come to like this balance of being able to, ask things of people without like expecting them to go over their boundaries, seeing their boundaries more clearly, being able to just naturally respect them and be okay if someone puts up a boundary because you're already giving to yourself. You have the boundaries on your energy and your time. You're getting what you need. You feel nice and full or close to full. So it's okay if like they're unable to, support you that time or support you in that way. It's okay if they don't go past their boundary. You'll be fine because you already have your own. So you have all that, you have all that supporting you and going on with you. So everyone gets to be nice and full. And then, of course, be connected and help each other out and support each other when possible. And that's much more likely when coming from a place where boundaries exist in a healthy way. And if you want to dive deeper into this kind of work one-on-one with me, and get into what is going on with your boundaries, with your subconscious programming and your dynamics. It could be well beyond boundaries, of course, but that's just the topic of today. But if you're wanting to get more into that kind of one-on-one work with me, where we see what's going on personally with you, where are these things coming up? How are these dynamics playing out? What even are these dynamics and how they're affecting you? And really working hands on through them in order to work with yourself, work with your life, and change it and change what you're experiencing, change it to line up with what you really want, and learning what you truly, authentically want, rather than just having it all unfold and happen to you and be in patterns and be stuck. That's all in one-on-one coaching. Of course, the specific process is going to look different for everyone. That's why it's one-on-one. But if you're interested in checking out what that's like to work with me, I'll have a link down below in the show notes about one-on-one coaching, as well as links to work with me in general, my social media, things like that. So I hope everyone has a sunny day, and I will see you around. Thank you for tuning in to the Sunny Days podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and catch more of my free content by following me at Alex the Good Witch on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, post it in your stories, and tag me on Instagram. I appreciate your time here with me today. Peace and love to you all, and I will see you in the next episode.